Tracy Westmoreland has just finished having lunch with her grandmother, Margaret. Tracy lost both of her parents in an accident when she was only 12 years old, and since then she has been raised by Margaret. After spending her life caring for Tracy, Margaret has one final wish. She wants to see her granddaughter married before her heart condition takes her life. At first, Tracy refuses. She is not ready for marriage and does not want to be pushed into it. But when Margaret suddenly feels unwell and is clearly in pain, Tracy panics. In that moment, she lies and says she is already engaged, just to ease her grandmother's worry.
I was gonna surprise you. Today, I'm engaged. Does it make you happy?
After lunch, Tracy drives Margaret home and meets her assistant, Alan. Before they part ways, Margaret, now overjoyed by the news of the engagement, says she wants to meet the man Tracy plans to marry. Margaret is not only a classic romance novelist, she also owns a publishing company that is now run by Tracy. At the office, Tracy confides in her best friend, Shelley, explaining her grandmother's condition and admitting that the engagement is completely fake. Feeling overwhelmed by Margaret's request, Tracy does something she never imagined. She searches online for a man she can hire to pretend to be her fiancé. That is how she meets Rob, a man who works for a service called Rent a Groom, helping women stuck in situations just like hers. This is where her small lie turns into something much bigger. This is Rent a Groom. To make the plan believable, Tracy gives Rob a fake last name and asks him to pose as an accountant. She also tells him about her grandmother, and to her surprise, Rob already knows who Margaret is. His mother loved Margaret's romantic novels. Tracy explains that Margaret has a heart condition and desperately wants to see her married. The arrangement, she insists, will only last a few weeks. Rob also agrees to meet Margaret in person. Back at the publishing company, Tracy has a coworker named Todd who has feelings for her. The two of them once went on a date, but Tracy never felt a connection. She also knows Todd is arrogant and enjoys impressing Margaret whenever he gets the chance. The next day, Tracy and Rob arrive at Margaret's house as planned. Inside, Rob notices one of his late mother's favorite novels, and Margaret is instantly delighted to finally meet Tracy's fiancé. Because of his mother's love for romance stories, Rob finds it easy to connect with Margaret, and she quickly grows fond of him. Rob shares that his mother passed away when he was young, and he was raised by his father, who spent most of his time working as a restaurant chef. He also claims that he and Tracy met while skiing in the mountains. Unfortunately, Rob gets carried away, filling the story with overly dramatic and romantic details that sound more like fantasy than reality. Tracy, clearly uncomfortable, pulls him aside and reminds him to keep things simple. She tells him all he needs to do is act like a normal fiancé. After giving him a few firm instructions, they return to say goodbye to Margaret. The next morning at the office, Tracy is completely caught off guard.
Oh no. I didn't think you were the marrying type.
Her grandmother has already told everyone about the engagement. On top of that, Margaret now wants to throw an engagement party and has invited the entire staff. Stunned by how fast things are spiraling, Tracy immediately confides in Shelley. She admits that the fiancé is actually a hired actor and explains that she only did this to protect Margaret's feelings because of her heart condition. Later that afternoon, Tracy and Rob sit down to discuss the engagement party, which is planned to take place at a restaurant called Hollingsworth. That is when Rob hesitates. He admits that he once worked there and worries someone might recognize him. To avoid trouble, he asks Tracy if they can move the party to a different location. As promised, Rob picks Tracy up at her house that evening, so they can head to the party together. Before they leave, he gives her an engagement ring, explaining that it belongs to a close friend who agreed to lend it to them for the act. When they arrive at the restaurant, Margaret is already waiting outside. She happily brings them in and proudly introduces Rob to everyone from the office as Tracy's fiancé. When Tracy presents Rob to Shelley, Shelley is instantly impressed by the ring and praises how convincing it looks. She even jokes that Rob is handsome enough to hire herself once his job with Tracy is finished. Not long after, they run into Todd, who clearly cannot accept the fact that Tracy is engaged to someone else. He starts probing Rob about his job as an accountant, asking pointed questions about the company he supposedly works for. Instead of getting trapped in details, Rob smoothly shifts the conversation to his background. He talks about growing up in Chicago, losing his mother and watching his father work his way up from being a waiter to owning his own restaurant. Before the night ends, Margaret surprises them with another request. She wants to take them somewhere to start planning the wedding. Tracy initially pushes back, but when she sees the disappointment on her grandmother's face, she gives in. In the end, Tracy and Rob agree to meet Margaret the next afternoon. The following day, before meeting Margaret, Rob shows up at Tracy's house earlier than expected. He says he wants to practice their roles while taking a walk together. During this time, Rob opens up about his acting career, mentioning that he once appeared on a television show and only had 2 short lines. He also asks Tracy about her life so he can better play the role of her fiancé. Tracy finally shares her past. After losing her parents, she became withdrawn and easily angered. Over time, she slowly changed, realizing that her grandmother's suffering was far greater than her own. Hearing this, Rob says he understands her pain. He explains that he has always been honest about losing his mother when he was just 9 years old. After their conversation, Tracy and Rob head to the venue Margaret has chosen. There, they meet an employee named Claude. Soon after, Margaret arrives with Alan, ready to walk around the location and begin deciding which details would be perfect for Tracy's wedding. As they step outside to look over the venue, Margaret asks Tracy and Rob to stand in front of the altar so she can take a photo as a keepsake. But the moment is suddenly interrupted when 2 women recognize Rob. It turns out they have seen him before, playing a mechanic in a television series. Later, as they are about to leave, Rob panics again when he spots an insurance advertisement featuring his own face. Luckily, Tracy notices it too and quickly distracts Alan, making sure he does not get a clear look at the ad. The next day at the office, Tracy looks up Rob's biography online. After reading it, she starts to believe that Rob has been honest about his background. Shelley picks up on Tracy's reaction and realizes that her friend is starting to fall for him. Even so, Tracy remains uncertain, reminding herself that their relationship is still just an act. Not long after, Rob suddenly shows up at Tracy's office and invites her out to lunch. While they are eating, Rob shares that an agent has offered him a role as an extra in a television series. Since the filming would take place in another city, he feels conflicted about accepting it, especially because he already has work where he is. He also asks Tracy to read the script and give her opinion on whether the role suits him. When Tracy returns to the office, Shelley drops a major revelation. Rob's father, Arthur, is actually the owner of a chain of high-end restaurants spread across several major cities. That means Rob is secretly wealthy and the sole heir to his father's business. Coincidentally, Rob arrives soon after with his new script, and Tracy asks why he kept his father's success a secret. Rob finally explains that he does not want to rely on his father's money and prefers to earn a living on his own terms. The following day, Margaret comes to the office with another surprise. She reveals that she has already paid for the venue and wants to hold a wedding rehearsal for Tracy and Rob. She admits she made the decision impulsively and feels guilty for pushing them. Still, Tracy agrees, not just for her grandmother's sake, but because she realizes her feelings for Rob have grown genuine during their time together. A few days later, Tracy and Rob meet again to discuss the rehearsal. Tracy explains that the venue is booked and the rehearsal is scheduled for Saturday. Rob then shares his own news. He has landed a leading role and is required to attend a costume fitting on the same day. The conflicting schedules leave them both unsure of what to do. In the end, Rob chooses to put Tracy first and decides to call his agent to postpone the fitting. That evening, Rob goes to a restaurant to meet his father, Arthur. The two of them have not seen each other in 3 years, ever since Rob chose to live independently and refused to rely on his father's wealth. Despite becoming a successful businessman, Arthur has never pressured Rob to take over the family business and has always respected his son's decision to pursue his own path. During their meeting, Rob finally opens up. He shares that he has fallen in love and asks for Arthur's blessing to give Tracy the ring that once belonged to his late mother. Elsewhere that same night, Todd is drinking at a bar when he suddenly notices an insurance commercial featuring Rob. The bar owner recognizes Rob as well, revealing that Rob was once hired by the owner's ex-girlfriend to pretend to be her fiancé. The truth is starting to surface. The next day, Rob heads to Margaret's company while talking to his father on the phone. He mentions that he plans to end the charade with Tracy. Unfortunately, Tracy overhears part of the conversation and completely misunderstands his intention. What she does not realize is that Rob wants to end the act by proposing for real during the wedding rehearsal. A few days later, the long-awaited day of the wedding rehearsal arrives. Rob goes to find Tracy before it begins, but she acts cold and distant, leaving him confused about what went wrong.
Lines, we can wrap this whole thing up.
As the rehearsal gets underway, Todd suddenly shows up and exposes Rob as a hired fiancé. With no way to hide the truth anymore, Tracy is forced to admit the entire act. She explains that she never expected her grandmother to support the fake engagement to this extent.
Wait, please.
After Tracy leaves, Rob stays behind and apologizes to Margaret for deceiving her. He admits that his feelings for Tracy are real, and that he had planned to use this moment to propose to her properly.
Maggie.
Later on, Tracy visits Margaret at the hospital. Margaret reveals that the ring Tracy has been wearing belonged to Rob's late mother. She then urges Tracy to find Rob's father so she can learn the truth about how Rob truly feels. Following her grandmother's advice, Tracy goes to Hollingsworth to meet Arthur. She returns the ring, and Arthur explains that Rob once asked for it so he could give it to the woman he loves. Arthur also reveals that he and Rob spoke on the phone about Rob's plan to end the act by proposing to Tracy. In that moment, Tracy realizes she has misunderstood everything. Arthur hands the ring back to Tracy and encourages her to go find his son. After leaving the restaurant, Tracy returns to the hospital to tell Margaret that she has met Arthur. Margaret assures her that she knows Tracy and Rob genuinely love each other and tells her not to give up. As Tracy steps outside the hospital, she unexpectedly runs into Rob. He explains that he has turned down the film role and finally admits that he is in love with her. With that heartfelt confession, the story comes to an end. So the moral of the story is lying about an engagement to please your grandma usually ends with a real wedding and public embarrassment.